Hello everyone, I am just a guy, and today we're going to really briefly talk about the deck list for GP Luffy, and then we're going to hop into the sim. We're going to get into a couple of games, alright? So first of all, the leader, brand new leader from EBO2 says activate main, once per turn, Dawn -2. If you only have the Straw Hat crew guys in play, you can set up to 2 of your rested Dawn cards as active, and then he becomes a 6k leader. So this is very, very powerful. I really, really like this leader and like the design behind it. It's not like my preferred play style. I think that this is like a combo deck basically. But I think that this is just a very strong leader. You know, the fact that you can just become a 6k leader at will is very, very strong. And then also the fact that you get to cheat Dawn every single turn is broken. Like, the fact that you can manipulate Dawn is very, very powerful. So let's talk about the new cards in this list. So let's start with Nami. She's just our searcher. She looks for other Straw Hat crew type cards, but she's not restrictive except for herself. So she can find almost anything in the deck. Zoro is a 4-drop that says tap a 4 or less as long as your leader is a Straw Hat crew. And then if your opponent has 2 or more characters on the field, he has like pseudo rush. He can attack into the other characters. One of the most broken cards in the deck is Sanji and Pudding. She's a 5-drop 7k. It says during your turn, when you use your leader ability, so when you have 2 or more Dawn cards going back to your Dawn deck, you get to ramp 1 back. So you get 1 back almost for free, you know, just by having her on the board. And then when you play her, as long as you have less than or equal to the same, less than or equal to Dawn than your opponent, you get to draw a card. So most of the time, you get to draw a card off of this. The only time it gets a little wonky is if you're playing against other purple decks, like specifically the mirror match is where it gets awkward. Nico Robin is another new card. She's a blocker, 3-drop blocker that says on KO, Dawn -1, but you get to look at the top 3 of your deck and get another Straw Hat. So we already have a ton of searchers in the deck. Between herself, Sanji and Pudding drawing a card, Nami's a searcher, Jor's a searcher. He's an older card from the structure deck, 18. And then Going Mary's another new card that says on play, draw a card, and then you can also boost your Straw Hats by +2. And then I think the last new card in this deck is the 6-drop Luffy that says as long as you are playing a multicolor leader and your opponent has 5 or more Dawn cards on the field, then he gains Rush. So for a 6-drop, 7k attacker, just has Rush 90% of the time. He's a phenomenal card. And then he says, when attacking, return 2 of your active Dawn cards to your Dawn deck, and then restand them, and then you take the top card of your life. Now, you don't have to take the top card of your life if you don't have any life. So when you're at 0 life, if you're at like 10 Dawn, you know, for example, you can play him for 6, and then you have 4 Dawn. You could swing with him for 9 twice. And that's before you even use your leader ability. So then you can like use your leader ability while you have Sanji and Pudding on the board, and then you can get back 3 more Dawn. So you can go from having 4 Dawn active to 7 Dawn active, and then you have a 6k leader, you have Sanji and Pudding on the board, and you still have the Luffy. So then you have 4 swings just sitting right there for free. So yeah, so this card is very powerful. There's no other new cards in this deck, and I'm not really gonna go over like the tech choices because like people know what Luna does. You just look at this card and you go, yep, this stuns a majority of people's boards. Another search event. This is just the 0-cost event that says it's 3k if you pitch a card. Gum Gum Giant, this card's broken. Almost everyone should know what this card does. It's absurd. And then we're just playing the normal set of 2Ks. You could cut down on Luna or even this card as well and play more 2Ks if you would like, but I think between Nico Robin being a really solid blocker, sometimes Sanji is also a solid blocker, and then having Gum Gum Giants and 8 2Ks, that is usually enough to live in the end game, because in the early game you're not really going to counter a lot, but honestly, let's just head into the games and I can show you. Alright, so moving on into the first game, I have it on 2x speed, and I make these plays kind of fast, so pardon me if I don't cover every single play, but here we go. So we're playing into Reiju, and I have just been choosing to go second, and I think in a lot of these games I actually won my die rolls. This was a solid hand. We have 2 searchers, we have some counter, and we do have a Luffy Taro, so if we want to, we can just play it out. They do get an Ichiji, and we pick up a Zoro off our first search, and we pick up, I believe, either Nico Robin or the Giant. Yep, the Giant off of our second search. So I think we're sitting in a really solid position. We have something to do on 4 Dawn, and we're just looking for something to do And there we go. There's the Sanji and Pudding right away. So we're just going to swing 5, play out Zoro Joro. And they counter actually, and then we decide here to pick up another Sanji and Pudding. There's some argument to pick up like Stage, for example, here, but I think getting to double Sanji and Pudding is really good, because then I can play Sanji and Pudding on 6, I can play Luffy Taro on 7, because I'll go Don minus and get only 1 back, and I can do that with the second Sanji and Pudding on the turn after that. So we have like our next 2 turns just kind of laid out. You know, we're going to go Leader Skill, go back up to 4 Active Don, and then we can Going Merry, and then we can just kind of swing a little bit. We can go swing 7, and if we want to, we can leave up a Gum Gum, but I'm probably not going to want to use it so that I actually have enough Don to play next turn. But our opponent here, they just have the 1 Ichiji on the board set up. So I'm not feeling like super scared here, especially since we're a 6k leader, so we don't have to give them 2 cards. But then they decide to swing 10 into Zoro Joro, and I'm like, that's a-okay. And then I'll take the 6 into 6, because that's fine. You know, at some point we kind of want to get down to 0 life, and then we just play Luffy Taro into Sanji and Pudding, and we boost up one of them just for funsies, and then we go Leader Skill, and we get back 4 Don, and then we just go swing 7 into 7. I just want to see if I can get a card out of his hand. And then I was debating on the exact number here, but I decided to just swing 9 into 7 to either get 2 cards or kill the Ichiji, and I did exactly that. I got 2 cards out of his hand, so I was happy. And he pitches the Gamma Knife for a search effect, and then he goes Reiju into Big Reiju to draw a couple of cards. And again here, I feel really safe, 9 into 6. You could Gum Gum this, and I actually decided to do so. But I think I am supposed to probably just take it, and then we take the next one, because this turn I wanted to play the 6-drop anyway, so I think being at 0 would have been totally fine. But we just start poking at him because he's like really low on cards anyway, so I think we were just going to kill him no matter what here. And then I kind of control the board a little bit. You know, I can kind of delay the game a little bit more if I wanted to, and that's exactly what I ended up doing. I just play the third Sanji and Pudding, and I get back up to, I believe it's 5 Don. Yep, because I get 2 and then 3 back from all of the Sanji and Puddings, and then I just develop my board a little bit more and try to pick up some more counter. Kind of whiffed on another 2k, but it's fine. I forgot to Going Merry, but it doesn't actually matter here, because he swings 9 into 6, and we just Gum Gum, and then he concedes, because we have infinite swings next turn. So moving on into game 2 here, we play against Shanks, and I don't know if it's actually correct to go first or second, but we go second here, and I have not 1, not 2, but fucking 4 searchers in this hand. So I felt pretty comfortable because I could find basically whatever I want. And we actually drew into a Gum Gum for turn, and then we find 2 copies of Sanji and Pudding, and then we take this first 5, and then he just plays Sanji, and we're totally fine. And we have triple Sanji and Pudding, and because I assume that this is control Shanks, even though he's played the Sanji here, which I don't know if that's normal in control Shanks, I decide to just swing 5, just a skill check basically. But having as many Sanji and Puddings is really important in this kind of a matchup, because he will remove them constantly, so I need to have another one ready at the follow-up. So we develop our Sanji and Pudding, of course, and he just has a Lucky Roo, so we're going to swing into the Sanji, hoping that he just blocks it, and then KOs the Zoro Joro. That's free for us, and then we clear out the Sanji. And we're already at 1 life, by the way, so we are a little uncomfortable, but we set up this Nico Robin blocker, and then next turn we're going to develop another Sanji and Pudding. So I don't feel the worst, especially since he shouldn't have access to a rusher aside from like the 5-cost rusher, but they don't play those in the control version. So when he threw down another Lucky Roo and a Hongo, I felt fine. I played out my second Sanji and Pudding, and then we go Leader Ability, and then we go back up to 6 Active Don. And then we had a couple of decisions to make, but I start with just a swing 7, just to see what he does, to see if he like blocks with the Lucky Roo and KOs the Nico Robin. It would have been totally fine if he did, but he just goes Shanks, Leader Ability, and 2k, and then we swing another 7, and I was hoping he would take this one, and he did, so now we're down to 4 life, finally. And then we just play out another Nico Robin, because I know I'm not going to swing again, and then we go Search Event, and we find our first 6-cost Luffy, so I feel okay. I wish he was at 3 life, but he hasn't really done anything crazy yet, you know, no big characters or anything, no Beckman or anything like that, so I feel fine. And we have 2 blockers on the board, so again, I don't feel like I'm in danger. But he goes Hongo on the Sanji and Pudding, and then he goes Rayleigh, and he KOs the standing Sanji and Pudding, I believe. And then this one that is tapped, he tries to swing into it, I believe, twice. So I just block both, and I search off the first one. I just pick up Utsuhachi. I believe I could have taken the 0 cost event, and I debated on if I wanted to block or counter out of this one, but I just decide to block, I believe, and then I do search because I wanted to make sure that I had enough Don to play next turn. And I think I just pick up the Sanji. Or no, I lied. I picked up the Gum Gum, of course. Gum Gum's broken. It's not correct to take it every single time, but a lot of the time you want to because that card's insane. We develop another Sanji and Pudding, and then we leader ability, and of course we drew off the Sanji and Pudding as well. And we have 6 Don here. We can do almost anything we want. I decide to Luna here because it trades for 2 things, in a sense that like now he doesn't have a blocker this turn or next turn, and the Hongo not being able to minus anything means that it's a little bit harder for him to reach that high with another Rayleigh. And then we go Nami, and I think we just picked up another 2K. And then we just leave up double Gum Gum. We could have gone married, but in this matchup it doesn't matter. So he plays out another Hongo, and then he has 7 Don left, so I assume it's like a Beckman, and that's exactly what it is. And like I said, this is exactly why we wanted to have all 4 Sanji and Puddings here, so I felt very lucky to have that. And then on this 8K swing, we just decide to Gum Gum to potentially draw into more counter for the end games. Now, I could actually sit here and talk about this end game here for a while, because after the fact, I did take my time and I really thought about this end game after the game, and it's actually a really interesting one. So if you want to pause right here and then the next turn or so, like during my opponent's turn, what they could have done differently to potentially win the game. Because I don't believe I get game on this turn. I actually just tried to like clear board a little bit and set up for game on the next turn. I go swing 6 into this Hongo just in case he tries to control the board more next turn, and also just maybe potentially bait some counter out of it. I don't know if it's correct or not, that play, but then we swing 8 into 5 here, and he's just going to trade for a Nami, and that's great. And then I play my own Sanji blocker, and I just pass. So my thinking was, okay, if he can put me to 0 life, and he's at 3 life, I will have 4 swings already on the board, plus the 2 swings from the secret cost, the secret 6 cost Luffy. So that's 6 swings. And I think that no matter what, that should be game, because I only need 4 to go through. So that means he has to counter out of 3 of them, which is pretty difficult here. And the way that he swings here, I thought about it for a while, like I said, after the fact, and I don't think that I agree with how he swung here. There was definitely a better way to do it. And I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. So if you are really interested in analyzing endgames, I would highly recommend pausing a little bit ago and analyzing his endgame here, because I think that there is a world where he can win. It's very unlikely. It's very, very unlikely, but there is a world where he could win this. And I specifically didn't block here because I wanted to see if I get another 2K out of life, so I don't have to give him so many cards. So that when this next 9K came in, I don't have to Gum Gum. I can just give him 2 2Ks, and then I can have the 6 swing turn that I was talking about. So we just give him the 2 2Ks, because if I didn't get a 2K out of life, I just would have given him a 2K and 2 1Ks. But yeah, so this should just be game, because I believe I'm at 9 Don, so I drop the 6 drop. And then we go leader ability, and we get 4 Don back. So now we're back up to 7. And then, if I remember correctly, we thought about the math for a little bit. I just know that at some point it's going to end with 2 9s from the 6 cost Luffy. So we start with the 7. And then we go 7 again. And I was hoping that at some point he would like leader ability 2K, but he doesn't. And then this is where I decided to do the 9, just do it early, because I really needed this leader ability to get gone. And then he goes 2 2Ks to counter out of this 8 after leader ability. Sorry, he used 2K and 2 1Ks. So that tells me that he has basically no counter in hand. And then we just swing, I believe 9 again. I just attach the extra Don, and then I go 9 again. And then if we take a look at his hand here, I'm just going to take a second to analyze it a little bit. He has 2 Red Hawks. Now, if you read the trigger on this card, it says trigger, give one of your opponent's characters or leaders, I believe, minus 10K. So we know for a fact that those 2 cards were in his hand. So if he had swung a little smaller and not gone for game and maybe tried to like clear board a little bit, he could have held up these 2 Red Hawks to, I don't want to say guarantee that he gets to his next turn, because I don't know if his hand was exactly like these cards at the end of his turn. Like, we know it was these 2, but I don't know how much other counter he had, but he had 3 life. So if he could counter out of those, if he can counter out of like 2 swings, and then like take take the 3 and then counter out of one more after the fact. I think he could have lived and then gone into one more turn, and I'm at 0 life with 1 blocker. But if I have up the 1 blocker and I hold up the 2 Gum Gums, I think there's maybe a sequence where he can win, but I'm not 100% certain. It depends on how he chooses to swing, if he wants to spread the Don between his characters, or if he plays 10 Shanks, or if he wants to play this extra Rush Luffy. So I'm really curious what your guys' thoughts are on this specific endgame, because I found this one really interesting. So let's move on to the next game, though, because the next game is the mirror match. And they chose to go first, so we're going second, and we actually mulliganed an okay hand into an even worse hand, but it ends up working out for us. So we play stage, and then we play stage again. We drew into 1 search event, so we actually have something to do next turn, and I think I just take this life here. It takes me a second, and we drew into Sanju and Pudding, so that's one less thing that I gotta search. But then he swings with this Nami, so he's not developing his board at all, so we're kind of in a tight position because we're already going down to 2. And we don't have like a ton of counter, but we do have the Gum Gums. And then we go search event into, unfortunately, just more counter. So we just decide to swing 5. Don't swing into the Nami here. It's kind of bait. Just get him down to 3 life, and he takes it. And then we play the Nico Robin, and then he goes Sanji and Pudding, goes back up to 3, and he just swings 6. And I think I counter out of this one. Yep, I like this. And then he plays Zoro Joro here, which I don't love this card. I don't think it's good this meta because the green Zoro just taps it, and then of course as I do here, and then of course against Lucci it's like almost free to KO it, so I don't particularly like the card, and then of course I forget that I have more Don than my opponent, so the Going Merry doesn't boost anything, but I don't think the boost actually matters, at least at this stage in the game. It matters later to play around Luna. You want to be above 7. So if you can get your characters to 8 or 9, then you are chilling. And I feel really comfortable now, at least. It took a little bit of setup, but we got there. Because this Nico Robin is a blocker. We have 2 life. And he played this event card that boosted the Nami, so he's swinging 7. And I just decided to take it because he only has 2 more swings this turn. So I just need to block one of them and then probably counter the other one. So I think I decided to counter out of this one and then just block, because I don't know how big he's going to swing with his leader, because he showed that he's willing to swing big randomly, and then that's exactly what he does. And then we just picked up another 2K. I think it was correct, actually, to take the Nami here, but instead I just take the 2K, because this next turn, I don't really have anything to do, unfortunately. So I think I just play 6-drop here, which I think that's really all I can do. Well, we could Luna, actually. I think there's a world where we try to swing into his characters a bit to kind of take some cards out of his hand. Because if he doesn't give us cards, then he loses the characters on board. And I think having the Sanji and Pudding on the board is more important than almost any of the cards in your hand. So I think if I'm in his position, I'm just going to counter out of anything that comes at the Sanji and Pudding, unless I literally have no counter. So we take some time to think and ponder, because the mirror match is really difficult. And we actually decide to play the Luffy, and then we go back up to 3 Don. And then I just swing 6 at lead, see if he gives me a card. But I think he's supposed to take here, and he does. And then we just swing 5. Trying to think just where I'm swinging the 5. Into the Nami, just because the 5 can't go at lead. But I was debating on if I wanted to play into Luna or not. And I said, you know what, if he's going to have it, he's going to have it. And then I just swing 6. Because the difference between a 1K and a 2K is almost none here, which is why, like I said, if I swing at the Sanji and Pudding, he's going to always counter out of it. But if I swing at life, there's a chance he takes it. And the difference between 1 life and 2 life, especially in the mirror match, is crazy. So, but him still being at 2 life for me is a little tough, especially if he has a Luna here. But I think I can still live. So he goes 7 to 5, and I don't care about this character at all, especially since my opponent's at 2 life. So I just let it go. And then he plays his own, and I know for a fact that I will not die this turn, because if he goes leader ability, he'll go back up to 4 Don. He's a 6K leader. And if he uses the 6 cost, if he swings 9 twice, then he goes down to 1 life, and then he's just dead next turn, 100%, because he's not leaving up any Don. So I just take this 10, I believe. Because I know that if he swings 7, I just easily counter out of it, and then he just dies. This is just a really easy position for me. I think I can counter out of it if I want to, but I would much rather just take it and then counter out of whatever he does with the Luffy here. So I don't know if it's correct here to counter out of it, but I decide to anyway. And then he just left the Luffy up, which I agree with my opponent that if I counter out of that one, just leave the Luffy up. Because now if I want to swing with my Luffy twice, now I have to take my own last life. So we start with the Going Merry just to make it an 8, which would only matter for like Luna here. Because I think actually this turn is when I decide to Luna into the Sanji and Pudding. Swing 7 at life first though. Because yeah, I don't think I do take my life. I just go swing 7 at face. He gave me a 2k, and then I think he took this one. And then I decide, I was debating for a second on like what exactly to do here. Because if I Luna and I want to go leader ability, I only get 1 Dawn to restand. Because I put back 2 of the rested one. And then there's only 1 more rested one. So I only get 1 Dawn back, and then I get 1 back off the Sanji and Pudding. But I do decide to do it. Because I only get the 1 back, and I go up to 4 Dawn, and I'm gonna leave the 1 Gum Gum up. Even though I Luna'd it, I still want to swing into it because I want him to choose. Because I also don't want to swing at him because he's just always gonna take it here. Because again, I want him to take the last life with the Luffy rather than me swinging at him and him just taking it for free. So I'd rather put the 9 into 7 and then go, are you gonna give me 2 cards or are you taking the Sanji and Pudding? And that kind of tells me the strength of his hand, meaning that he doesn't have a lot of 2Ks, if any. Which is not unlikely at this point in the game, but I don't think that it's a guarantee. And I'm not an expert in the mirror match by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that I'm always living here. Unless he has Luna. Like, if he has exactly Luna, I'm going to feel really bad, but then I can Luna him back for his Luffy. But he could just make it stand. Like, he could just swing some number with the Luffy, and then I take it, and then he restands the Luffy. But then he's at 0, so unless he has like double Gum Gum in hand, I don't think he has a reason to feel safe. Yeah, he thought about swinging in there with the 6 cost, and then he goes leader ability to make it a 6k, and then he swings 7 at where is the question. He's thinking. He swings at me. I just give him a 2k, because like I said, I want him to swing with this Luffy so badly. But I am still afraid of a Luna here. But again, I don't feel like I'm ever dying. And then I realized that he only has 1 Dawn left, so he can't swing with the Nami like he has wanted to this whole game. He might have even played the Nami this turn. I forget. But I take it. I get the free trigger. And it doesn't really matter what I take here. Actually, no, it does. So this endgame was actually something else that I thought about for a while, where it does matter if you take the Luffy versus the Sanji and Pudding. And I think in this specific situation, I think it's correct to take the Sanji and Pudding and play it. Now, it is funny. I do take the Sanji and Pudding, and then I drew into another Sanji and Pudding, and then when I played the Sanji and Pudding, I drew into a 6 cost Luffy. So at the end of the day, it technically doesn't matter what I searched, because I was always going to end up getting the other one. But I think it's correct to play the Sanji and Pudding, because you, because let's see, I think I go to 6 Dawn, 3, 6, yep, I'm at 6 Dawn, so I play the Sanji and Pudding. We're always going to play the Sanji and Pudding, because that's what we searched. And then we go leader ability, we get 2 back, so then we go to 3, and then we get 2 more Dawn from the Sanji and Puddings, so then we go up to 5 Dawn, I believe. Yep, so then we go up to 5 Dawn, so then we can go swing, we can go swing 6, swing 8, swing 9, swing 9. And I think that is getting the most amount of cards out of hand, because 6 is 1 card if he decides to counter. Swinging 8 is 2 cards, that's 3 cards total, and he takes here. And then we swing 9 twice, so 9 would be, here, hold on, let me pause. So 9 into 6 would be 2 2Ks. That's twice, so that's 4 cards. So that's 4 cards, and then the 2K, 1K from the what is it, the 8 into 6, and then 1 more card from the 6 into 6. So if he wanted to counter out of everything, it would have been 7 cards total. But of course he only needed to counter out of, he had to counter out of 3 things, so he could have taken one of the 9s and had to counter out of, he would have had to have counter out of a 9, a 8, and a 6. So the 6 is 1 card, the 9 was 2 2Ks, so that's 3 cards, and then the 8K swing is another 2 cards. So it would have been 5 cards. Versus if I taken the other Luffy, I played it for 6, I go down to 0 Dawn, and then it would be 6, or sorry, we would go leader ability, and then you go up to 6, and you get 3 Dawn back, because you only have the 1 Sanji inputting, and you spent 1 more Dawn because you played a 6 versus playing a 5. So you have a 6k leader, and then you have three 7k swings, because then you have 1 more Dawn left for Sanji inputting. So it's 6, 7, 7, 7, 8. So that's 1 card for 7, 1 card for the second 7, 1 card for the third 7, and then 2 cards for the 8. So it's only 6 cards. So I think it is, just based off of this quick math that I've done here and that I've tried to demonstrate, is slightly better to take the Sanji inputting versus taking the Luffy. Now, if you have more Dawn, it could be worth it, I think. I don't want to waste your time here and sit here and do all the math. I think it could be worth it if you had a couple extra Dawn to take the second Luffy, or if you already have a Sanji inputting in play. So if like I'm at this port state already and I wanted to play the second Luffy, like if I'm at 6 Dawn and I already have the second Sanji inputting in play, then it's better to play the Luffy if you don't have another Sanji inputting. And I don't want to do the math if we want to play the third Sanji inputting, because at that point we should already be winning. But in this case, he had a 0 cost event and 2k, so he could have swung, or he could have countered out of one of the 9s, I believe. But then he can't counter out of the second one. So that is it. That is all the games today. Thank you very much, and let's head into like a post deck wrap up and kind of get my thoughts on the deck. Okay, so really quickly, I just kind of want to talk about my thoughts on the deck. Talking a little bit more about the really good things about this deck and the things that are kind of disadvantageous, like the weaknesses per se of the deck. So key strengths of this deck are that you get to abuse Dawn. You get to have so much extra Dawn per turn than your opponent. Even though you physically have less Dawn cards active, you just get to reuse the same Dawn over and over again every single turn, which is very powerful. So on a turn where you would normally have like 7 Dawn, you might actually have 11 Dawn or even 12 Dawn, which is absurd. Secondly, the deck is highly consistent in that you have so many searchers and you draw so many cards. I don't want to say it's absurd, but it's pretty absurd. And also the fact that you get to abuse Electrical Luna in this kind of a metagame is really, really powerful. The fact that you can go really wide really quickly because of Luffy Taro, Zoro, Sanji inputting, all just vomiting themselves on the board really quickly, and how much extra Dawn that you get is just absurd. And then this card being like the best boss that I've seen ever playing this game. I could be wrong. There could be better boss monsters in this game that I just don't know about. But I think that this guy is deceptively very, very powerful, and if played with correctly, this card's super strong. And I definitely misplayed with it a lot when I first started. But that's one of the weaknesses of this deck, is that it's kind of hard. I don't want to say that it's, oh my god, it's so difficult. Of course, I have to think with my brain, but that's kind of the nature of playing a combo deck, is you have to find your pieces and play them out in the correct sequence, and you want to make sure that you play correctly into each matchup. Don't get me wrong, a lot of the time you're just going to go play Sanji Pudding as soon as you can, draw your extra free cards, and get all your extra free Dawn. But there are instances where you don't have the Sanji inputting, and that's another weakness of the deck, is yes, you do have all these search cards, and yes, you do draw a lot. But sometimes you don't find Sanji inputting on curve and you're really far behind. But you can still win without it. Zoro and Luffy Taro are just hell of a card. Like, they're very powerful individual cards. And Gum Giant just lets you live forever. You could have nothing on the board and 1 life, and your opponent could have 3 swings, and you could just live. You could just live forever. And then that can draw you into like your Luffy, and then just kill them on the crackback. So, because for no reason you will have 3 swings just out of nowhere. So, like I said, advantages of the deck: very consistent, very, very high skill ceiling, but kind of a lower floor, in a sense that, like, if you don't know what you're doing and you haven't practiced a lot with this deck, especially into some of the harder matchups like Lucci, for example, into any matchup where they can remove Sanji inputting consistently, you're going to have a really hard time. And the mirror match is also very difficult. It's very skill intensive. but it's a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie, it is a really good time. It's very intricate, and there's a lot of small things that you can do to give yourself a nice edge in the mirror match. But those are kind of difficult to just figure out on your own. I definitely recommend playing this game with other people because they will be able to point out things that you never would have noticed with this deck. And there's a lot of tips and tricks with this deck that I had to learn just by making the mistakes, and I went, oh, yeah, never do that again. So, all in all, I think the deck is extremely powerful, and it's the best deck in the format for the next couple of weeks for a reason. This deck is one to be afraid of, especially if your opponent is very skilled with it. So, thank you guys all so much for watching. If you haven't already, if you'd like, you are welcome to subscribe and like, and let me know what you liked about the video in the comments below, please. Because, I'm doing this mostly just for fun, but if you guys, are enjoying this, and if there's anything that you particularly like about it, I can continue doing that. But if there are things that you don't like, if there are things that I can improve upon, please tell me. I'm more than happy to take any kind of feedback. So, that's it. That was this week's 1 week testing for GP Luffy. Thank you all so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you next week with a for fun Anel mirror match that I got to play on a ranked sim. So stay tuned for that. Have a good one, y'all.